Hey everybody, it's Dr. Eric Balkavage, and I am joined by Dr. Erica Riggleman. We're back for another edition of Thyroid Answers Podcast, and this is the holiday edition. We're going to do this podcast and get it out for the holidays, so we can give you some tips for how to deal with hypothyroidism for the holidays. Right? Sounds great, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I got my my shirt on today, my reindeer shirt.
I was almost said you have your ugly Christmas sweater on, but it's not an ugly Christmas sweater. It's actually a very nice Christmas
Yeah, you
sweater.
apparently didn't get the memo. You have red on.
I have red on for the holiday, right? Yeah, I'm very limited. I have a very limited wardrobe. I think this is my one red shirt. Everything else is some color of blue, which isn't necessarily seasonal.
Yeah.
But this is it. This is the best you get from me. So let's talk about dealing with hypothyroidism, especially down the holidays. I mean, it's a big issue. I know for me and my patients, we're just getting started with them. Maybe we've started seeing them in October, November. We're just figuring out the anti-inflammatory diet, and now the holidays come, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things go wonky and go crazy, and it could be a real issue for people because they just started making improvements and now they go back to a dietary pattern that maybe creates more stress, and we want to be talking about that. The other issue is you have the other thing that occurs, which is people become so stressed out during the holidays because they're going to family, they're going out to eat, and they're so stressed out about what they can't put in their mouth or what they can't do that actually creates more stress on the system, and they'd be probably better off just enjoying themselves a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the stress component of it is really, it's huge, and you may not even understand it may just be the idea of having to buy gifts, and maybe it's money. You know, the holidays just bring stress to begin with, just because there's so many events, pressure to buy gifts, to get them, time constraints. So I think that, having an outlet for stress and being self-aware of the amount of stress that you're being put under, and you just think you can go, and I'll rest after the holidays type of thing. You can't necessarily do that because, again, that stress can build up. And once you do get past the holidays, it doesn't mean that, you're not going to have long-term issues that sustain from having that much stress. So I think that while it's going on, finding ways to have outlets for stress, whether that's making sure you get your workouts in, if that's your way of de-stressing, then do that. Taking time for yourself. I think that, whether you have kids or your family's in town, I think that you find a way to, whether it's going on a walk or, taking a hot bath, finding a way to have that stress outlet, maybe practicing some meditation. We've definitely talked about meditation before, maybe finding that inner peace and that moment where you can just kind of be grounded again and realize that, this is a holiday. It is going to pass. In trying to time manage, I think, is really, really important. I mean, obviously we're only a few days away from Christmas, but, preparing is another, good thing that, as holidays come up in the future, being prepared, not waiting to the last minute to buy gifts and, prepare food or even to think about it, because that is when it gets stressful. And when you try to go to the store and things are already gone, and that just adds more and more stress to it, I think. So I think stress is a big component that we don't see. We don't see stress, but it definitely can weigh on us.
Yeah. And I think we need to classify. Everybody's going to have stress. You're never going to avoid stress. And there's good stress. We call that eustress, things that you stress your body and it actually helps and it's good for you. And then there's distress, and that's the stress that kind of breaks you down a little bit more. You really need a balance of both, and both of those things are beneficial. And really what we're talking about is how to manage some of that distress. And sometimes you're not going to be able to get away from, hey, the family's coming, got all these things to do. You're not going to be able to get rid of all of that stuff. So you don't have to really get rid of it all, but you do have to have something to kind of balance out the scale, like the old teeter-totter thing. Just balance it out a little bit. And so what we want to do today is we want to talk to people about what are the things that you can do if you've got how to reduce your stress load, how to balance the stress load. If you're you just started an anti-inflammatory diet, if you're gluten-free, dairy-free, what do you do during the holidays? What are some of the strategies that people can use to reduce the negative stress so it has less of an impact on the system, so they get through the holidays happy and healthy? because during the holidays, I mean, there is stress. I mean, the shopping, all that stuff that goes on, and the preparation and the travel, those are all maybe distressors, but they're balanced many times, if you allow it, by the bonding with family and friends. And so there is that plus and minus. We just want to make sure that we give you some tips so that distress maybe isn't such a big deal. So one of those things we want to do is, well, let's start with food and think about meal prep. Let's talk about strategies. Let's say you're a person who you have a patient who's just really getting started on an anti-inflammatory diet, right? And this is like that first month or so is really the time where they're really trying to figure out, how do I go from my standard American diet to this anti-inflammatory diet? And it can be very stressful because a lot of times people get super worried about every little drop in morsel they're putting into their body. What strategies would you give to the person who is now a month into an anti-inflammatory diet, where they've maybe had control of their eating, and now they have to go to all these events and homes to eat, and they don't have control? So what advice would you give to somebody in that situation?
I think preparing is probably the number one biggest thing that you need to do, whether that be you prepare several dishes, whether it's a whole dish for everybody, or you have your individual portion that you want to take with you, but prepping to know that there's going to be at least something there for you to eat. You know, if you know the host or whoever's house you're going to, you can ask for menus ahead of time, ask for, people want to be accommodating. You know, if they know you have a sensitivity or they know you're on a restricted diet, you're not a burden to people. Ask them, well, what's in it? And if they can't give it to you, then obviously you just stay away from that. But I think being prepared, the last thing you want to do is get to, your in-laws' house or your work party and you have nothing to eat. That's where you get in that situation where you're like, well, I'm starving. And then you scan the room for the least harmful culprit. And then oftentimes you just indulge in everything. So I think that being prepared and bringing something, or eating before. I tell a lot of my patients, if they've got to go to a wedding or a buffet or something, eat before you go. And then if there is something you can eat, then obviously you can be a part of that to have that social interaction. But, eating before will then mean that you're not going to indulge too much in some of the stuff that's bad. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're in a situation where you weren't planning it. You end up at a party where you weren't planning to go to that party. And then at that point, you just have to make the best decision possible. Try to find the things that are look for the vegetable type of stuff, look for, whether it's salads or, most time meats in most cases are going to be a safer bet, unless there's seasonings and things on that. But, if you're going to a holiday dinner, a lot of times, turkey or the meat is a fairly safe thing, or a vegetable. You just be careful of the gravies and the pies and stuff like that. So pinpointing those things that you already know, like for example, for me, when I was going to my in-laws for Thanksgiving, I asked ahead of time, what is the meal plan? What is this? And, one of the things that they were going to have was the dressing, which I know isn't going to be, they're not going to make gluten-free. They don't know how to make that stuff. So that's one of the things that I knew from my family, that we were gluten-free. I made ahead. I made a gluten-free dressing to take with us so that we felt a part of that, and I made a dessert so that we could eat the things and not feel left out, that everybody's having dessert. Or, I think that, so again, the prep, I think, is the biggest thing that you can do ahead of time and take with you, so that that you have something that you can eat.
Yeah. And I think those are all great recommendations. And I'll kind of go through my list as I was listening to you. Definitely, I think if you're going someplace else, and most times when you're going to an event, you usually bring something anyway. So bring something appropriate. Whether you tell everybody it's hey, that's gluten-free or whatever, is up to you. But what I know from experience, and from experience, is many times some of the gluten-free foods that we make, when we make really good gluten-free foods, they actually taste sometimes better than the real thing. I mean, and this is, I don't know, we've had this experience in our house with my kids as they're growing up, and, if there's a birthday, then there's the gluten-free cookies and there's the gluten-full cookies. The gluten-free cookies will go way faster than the gluten-full cookies. And I don't know why, but they actually taste pretty good. But sometimes those options are fine. So I think it's one of those things, if you're going to somebody else's house, find out what you can bring so that you can control that piece of it. So whether it's salad dressing, it's the salad, it's the meat portion, it's a dessert, and you can make it like in our family, everybody, my two siblings and my family get together. And when we have that group of, 13, 14 people coming together plus extended family, not everybody's gluten-free, but almost everything that's made is gluten-free because there's a number of us that are. So we've transitioned, but in the early days, we would make it, and my family was very accommodating to say, hey, we'll try and get a gluten-free version of it. And many times you wouldn't even know. And if it's the holidays and you're making a filet roast or something, that can very easily be made gluten-free. And so you just try and bring what will make meal planning for that person easier, but also make your life easier because you have control. Definitely one of the strategies, we're going to a party tonight, is always eat before you go. You control what you eat before you go. The chances are then you're going to snack and limit what you eat more. And usually, most people, when you go to, like when I go to the neighborhood party, there's a couple people in my neighborhood that are gluten-free, but the vast majority of the food is not now this party will be top notch. I mean, she goes all out. So this will be gourmet food. But if you go to just a regular party, I mean, it's usually not maybe the highest quality. It's because you're serving the masses, and I get that. So I prep that. I think eating before you go, make sure that you're satisfied before you go. That'll stop you from doing a lot of cravings. The other thing to talk about is like enzymes. I mean, if you know you need to be gluten-free and you're highly reactive to gluten, there are some enzymes that you can use that can help mitigate some of the damage. If you're dairy intolerant or lactose intolerant, there's enzymes that you can use to do that. Is that a long-term answer? It isn't, and I would definitely caution people about the DPP-4 enzymes that are out there for breaking down gluten. And you can take those on a regular basis. The problem is you need that enzyme to help with blood sugar control. And so if you start taking that on a regular basis because you want to blast your body with lots of gluten, and then you're going to probably have blood sugar problems. Okay, so we won't get into the mechanics of that, but just know that there can be rescue tools short term, but there are enzymes you can use. Like, hey, I'm going to eat that, and what else? What can I do? I know I'm going to have some. There are enzymes you can take that can mitigate it short term, but don't get yourself caught up long term that's the best strategy.
The other thing I'll throw in, since we're talking about supplements, is activated charcoal. That's another one that if you go to that party, you didn't prep, you didn't take your enzymes, you ate some of the food and you come back and you feel really icky. Some activated charcoal is a good thing to maybe bind up some of the toxins and things that you may have ate to kind of get it out of the system. So I tell people that's a good kind of rescue remedy. You just like the enzymes, be very cautious taking that, on a long-term basis, because it can bind nutrients, vitamins, any supplements, medications you're taking. So you use it as more of a rescue remedy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The next one I had was self-control is limited. So realize that you can only be around that chocolate chip cookie that looks so good for so long, and eventually you're going to eat that chocolate chip cookie, right? So self-control is limited, and don't feel like you're a bad person if after 3 days, 3 parties in a row, you're going like, I got to have that. We all have a limited amount of self-control. We typically have a lot more in the morning when we start the day, and as the day goes on, that self-control goes down and we start to go for it. But I think you really have 2 choices, and one of those is either don't choose not to do it, or if you really choose to do it, don't beat yourself up, right? If you're going to feel guilty about what you did all day, plus feel bad potentially because of the food you ate, that's a double whammy. my suggestion is, look, I'm going to go to the party. I'm going to have something. Don't beat yourself up for it for the next 2 days and be angry with yourself and have negative self-talk. Just commit to it and say, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of it. And then the other thing that goes along with that is see what your body tells you, right? Hey, man, I really didn't feel well after that. Great. That's telling you you're still probably pretty sensitive to or intolerant to that food. You probably shouldn't do it on a regular basis at all, but be aware of what your body's telling you. I didn't feel good. I felt, I was sick to my stomach. I had headaches. My joints ached. Yeah. That gives you that clue that I'm still reactive to whatever that was. And I probably shouldn't do that very often. So I see a lot of people just so stressed out about everything about, hey, I don't know what to eat. I can't eat. Everybody's going to look at me like I'm crazy. Look, if you're this stressed out and you haven't even gotten to the first party yet, all this perceived stress is going to be your issue. It'll be the bigger issue than the food. So make a plan, make a strategy, like the things we're talking about. And then if you do eat something, don't beat yourself up. Just be aware of how your body feels.
People are always gonna be like, well, why aren't you eat this? Or grandma's always gonna be like, it's just one cookie, and again, it's that self-control that, when I go to a party, most people at this point, our neighborhood party was last week, and people know that I'm gluten-free, so that they know why I'm not eating all the food, and it's not being disrespectful to the host or anything like that. And they know that. So, and again, when people are like, oh, it's so good, you should try it. I'm like, you enjoy it, you got it. I'm good. And sometimes they'll just say, oh, that would make me sick for days. And they're like, oh, and they understand. I think sometimes people think that you're just making the decision not to do it. But I think that there's health things. And once people know that there's a health reason why you're not doing something, they're not going to keep pushing it. And I think sometimes it's a little bit of education. Grandma may not understand. She thinks you're on that gluten-free fad diet. But sometimes a little bit of education to people saying, hey, I did a test and it said that I couldn't have this, or, oh, I have underlying thyroid issues and, my functional medicine doctor suggests that I stay away from this stuff. People usually at that point are not going to keep pushing you to, they're not going to force a cookie in your mouth at that point.
Yeah. All right. So now we've got the going to somewhere else. We've got that under control. The party's at your house. Everybody's coming to your house. What do you do in that situation? How do you control it? Do you make multiple different meals? Do you make everything conform to your diet? What's your recommendation there?
I can tell you what I personally do. I love to cook. So I've been doing this stuff for years now, cooking. So it's my mission to make gluten-free, healthier food taste good. So I think that when I make a meal, I'm making everything so that I can eat it. I don't mean to make that sound selfish, but it tastes good too. If people want to bring something, they certainly can. If they have their little thing that they love to make it. That's perfectly fine. But I want to make sure that if I'm going to make a meal, I want everybody else, whether they care about their health or not, I'm going to make them care that for that one little meal. And that's my way of, and most people, it'll be a conversation starter. Like, oh, wow, this is gluten-free. I would have never known. Oh, this is healthy. This tastes amazing. And I think that putting that meal together and that menu can sometimes be stressful, but there are so many amazing resources out there. There is an AIP, an autoimmune paleo cookbook, recipe book on every single holiday, every topic. There's so many good ones out there. We had interviewed Mickey a couple months ago, and she has great cookbooks, a recipe booklets specifically for the holiday that can really make it very, very easy for a new person in this realm. And at this point, I have a whole recipe booklet that has all my traditional favorites now at this point that I cook over and over from year to year. So it's building that kind of, history and, knowledge of being able to do it. Yeah. Is the first year going to be kind of scary? Because you're like, is this going to taste good or is this not going to taste good? The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get. Maybe that first year, if this is your first year doing it and trying to host it, maybe just make a small little portion of the gluten-free stuff. If you're unsure it's going to taste good and you don't want your guests to be sitting there thinking, oh, this food is awful type of thing. Or you could try recipes ahead of time. If you've got time, try a few things ahead of time and just trial, let your family taste it, let them be brutally honest with you, as opposed to your guests coming in thinking that the stuff tastes terrible.
Yeah. I think you're right. If there's a bunch of people coming to your house and everybody's got some food sensitivities and things, then yeah, maybe you're making the cleanest food for everybody, and that makes sense. If it's a new experience and you've got a bunch of people who are coming who don't have an issue, it's just you, I would make most of the food so you can eat it, right? Make sure it is a good tasting food, and then depending on your group of who's coming, you may have hey, this is the stuff for everybody, and this is the stuff for me. If it's just you, that's the issue. But we've been doing this for a long time in our family, and I'd say 99% of everything that's been cooked over probably the last 8 to 10 years is something that everybody can eat. And it's really, for us, we're so used to doing it that it's the norm. Now, when we started, it was just a couple of us eating gluten-free versions of things, or gluten-free, dairy-free versions of things. But now it's a much, much easier experience. And, we have family members who don't abide by a gluten-free diet. And, but the food tastes so good all the time. My wife likes to cook, my sister-in-law, my sister, the food is so good. We don't miss a beat. So I think if it's your house and your control, you make the best choice for you. And it is sometimes, it could be a little bit more, if you're trying to make gluten-free dishes of gluten-full foods, it can be a bit more expensive to do that. So you might say, hey, we got to go make a lot of this stuff. The people who are gluten-full, great, here's your version, here's our version, and that may make it a little bit of extra work, but it may save a little bit of money and maybe just be a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this. Not that everybody drinks alcohol, but what do you do about alcohol? If you're a person who's supposed to be gluten-free, what do you do about alcohol during the holidays?
Yeah, I mean, alcohol, we know has negative effects on the body, but during the holidays, it's one of those things that you go to a party, maybe there's champagne, maybe for New Year's, they've got the champagne, they've got wine at, Christmas dinner, you go to holiday parties and everybody's, hanging out. I think with alcohol during the holidays, you want to try to avoid it, but is one glass gonna harm you? I think it's gonna come down to the moderation thing. If you feel like you're having an anxiety about going to a social event and people are gonna be, why are you not drinking? If you feel like you're gonna be pressured, then maybe not go to that event. But if you're around people who understand that you had some health challenges, and again, it's like with the food, if they're gonna pressure you so much, then maybe not go, or have something that you can drink that's not alcoholic. If you have your water, or most people, if you're drinking something, they're not even gonna really tell the difference that you're not drinking along with them. But I truly don't believe that one drink is going to completely ruin, if that's what you want, your one little thing. If you're going to avoid all the gluten-filled cookies and cakes and all the food, and you just have maybe a little glass of wine, then that one glass, I think it's moderation. I think you got to choose the alcohol that you do very wisely. I think there's better than other stuff. If you're gluten-free, you want to be careful that you're not drinking beer. If you're going to drink certain things, you just want to be careful of the sugar content, the mixed drinks. I think that you got to be very careful of that. And, but if you can avoid it, obviously that's great. But in the holidays, again, it's with the food. If you're going to say, hey, I'm going to do it, then don't stress over it either.
Yeah. And so, alcohol definitely has a negative impact on the body, but it also has a positive, sometimes social impact if it's controlled. I don't think a night out of having some alcohol is going to ruin your whole autoimmune paleo process. And could it? It may set you back, but it's a temporary thing. The body will overcome and adapt. We're not telling everybody to go out and start boozing up for the holiday, but there are, drink, if you're going to drink, moderation's key. Definitely, alcohol, water, take breaks, don't overdo it. And I think if you're trying to fit in and but you don't want to drink, but you don't want people asking you, the simple thing is just get a glass of tonic water versus a gin and tonic, right? Just get something, get something that's good. Put the straw in, put the olive in, the lemon, the lime in, whatever it is. Somebody can give you a drink that looks just like, or you can make yourself a drink that looks just like an alcoholic drink, and nobody knows the difference, right? So just be cautious, right? Don't overdo it if you are going to consume. And then if you're going to have some alcohol, 1 or 2 drinks, not the end of the day, again, be aware of how it makes you feel. And then don't stress over it. I drank alcohol. Don't beat yourself up for the next 3 or 4 days. That's probably not helpful. Just be aware. Hey, my body really didn't like that. And I only had 1 or 2 drinks. So I had that glass of wine. I had a headache right away. Yeah, that's something you want to tell your functional medicine practitioner, because that's good information for them. If you drink red wine and you have a headache right away, or you drink alcohol and you have a headache right away, that's something we want to know, because that gives us some clues as to what challenges you may be struggling with from a nutrient deficiency standpoint.
Yeah, you also have to be careful. Alcohol will lower your ability to have self-control sometimes too. So you have that glass of wine, and then you see those gluten-free cookies over there, or the regular cookies and all the food. And sometimes then you kind of get in a downward spiral where you're like, well, I'm drinking the wine, and let's just throw everything out the window today. I'm gonna splurge on everything. I'm gonna eat this bread, and I'm gonna eat these cookies, and I'm gonna drink this wine. I think that's where you can get in a little downward slide, is that you want to pick your poison essentially wisely. Is that one can lead to 2 and 3 and 4 different things that really then can make you feel pretty awful for the next couple of days, or the several weeks. So you just want to be careful of that.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I mean, definitely the impact of doing some of this stuff over the holidays can create not just a day of not feeling good, but it can cause a week or more of sometimes really feeling lousy. It can take up to 72 hours for the immune system to rev up following a meal. So you may eat and do a bunch of things on one day, feel good for the next 2 days, but then it's on day 3 where you go, man, I really don't feel good. And you may not even chalk it up to what happened 3 days ago. You may just consider I'm getting a flu, I'm getting a virus, but it really may be what happened a few days ago. So you got to be cautious that you don't go totally off the rails. Do the best to have some self-control. And I think there was an expression when I was in college, eating's cheating. So when people started drinking, they didn't eat much. So it's one of 2 things. Sometimes if I just have something the drink or sip on, that may keep them from eating, or other times it may do exactly what you said, is it may set the chain, break the chains, and somebody may go a little bit haywire. How about you go to holidays and you get people, this happened in the office the other day. I was talking to somebody, they brought us a gifts to the office, and that was very nice of them to do that. And then I was talking to them a little bit, and they go to a lot of parties, and so they're really been off the dietary recommendations for a while, because they're like, well, everybody gives me gifts. I have to, what am I going to do? I'm eating the stuff because they gave it to me. It does, they don't know anything about the AIP, they don't know anything about it. So I have to eat it because they gave it to me. What would be your recommendations as people receive gifts, especially food-based gifts, that don't comply with maybe an AIP protocol when they're on it, or their food intolerances?
That's a hard thing, because someone's giving you a gift and you want to feel very grateful, but I also don't think that you should feel obligated to eat it or even utilize it. I know over Thanksgiving, our office, it was actually one of our reps brought us a homemade apple pie. And I was like, it was in a homemade dish. He had spent a really long time making it. He was so proud of it. And I'm like, that's full of gluten. I didn't tell him this, but you take the gift, you say thank you. But I think that what you do with it, I think you have to make that decision. For years, people would give Bath and Body Works things, and how those artificial smells are endocrine disruptors. And so I don't think you should feel bad if you don't utilize it, or if you really aren't going to use it, then re-gift it. If it's some sort of product that isn't opened, you can You could donate it. You can re-gift it to somebody else. If it's a food, find somebody that would use it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with, taking it. Just try not to make the person who gave it to you find out, because they may have, hurt feelings. But I think that you shouldn't feel obligated to have to use it if deep down it may set you back. I don't think that's worth it. You kind of have to weigh out the guilt versus, the negative effects that could happen from utilizing it. I mean, it's wonderful. People give lots of gifts, and, it's a funny story is when we moved into our house several years ago, our neighbors were moving in as well. And she brought me a whole bunch of cookies for Christmas, and come to find out, like 3 months later, we were all hanging out and she's like, "You're gluten-free." She's like, "So what did you do with all those cookies that I gave you?" And I was like, "Well, I gave them to my staff." And she understood. She's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were gluten-free and we had just met." And so she felt guilty. And because I'm like, "No, don't feel guilty." I'm like, "They went to good use. I gave them to my staff, ate them because they are not gluten-free." And, so there's a whole avenue that goes along with it. So don't feel obligated that you have to utilize it, but put it to a good use. Don't just throw it away.
Yeah, I think I think you just said that well. Just because somebody gives you something, that's great. Part of the idea of the holidays, I mean, we get stuff that you don't want, you don't need all the time. The idea is it makes somebody else feel good to give the gift. I mean, that's the biggie. If I'm giving you a gift, this is going to sound selfish, but it is selfish. I'm giving you the gift because it makes me feel good, right? And so accept the gift, thank the person for the gift, be thankful somebody cares enough about you, and then I have no problem with the regift, right? Just change the names and do the regift, because it's better that you give that to that, whatever that is, if it's food, if it's some type of object. If you give that to somebody else who is going to put it to good use, I think that's probably the better option, and then just toss it in the trash and creating waste. So
there's always places you can go, donate, or even food banks you can donate some of this stuff to. So, don't let it go away. So let you feel good that you donated it to a good place that
right.
Then you utilized.
Yeah, the holidays, it's all about giving, but in reality, there's a selfish piece to that. Everybody wants to feel good. So if I give you something that makes me feel a little bit better, but unfortunately, not everybody's going to be aware of what your food sensitivities, food intolerances, your current diet you're following, or even that the fact that, hey, I made a commitment to myself to really exercise and I'm not going to eat all the junk food. The person who's bringing you the apple pie doesn't know that you made those commitments to yourself and that you want to stick with those. So accept it, be thankful, and then regift it, right? Give it to somebody else and make good use of it. How about, traveling? What are the recommendations? A lot of people are going to be traveling. What are some of the key recommendations to maintain their health during the holidays for people who are doing a lot of traveling, whether it's driving in a car, whether it's flying in a plane? What kind of recommendations would you give people to maintain their health and well-being?
I think the number one biggest thing for traveling is hydration. If you're in a car, most people aren't drinking water because they're thinking, oh, we're going to have lots of bathroom breaks then. And so people avoid the water and then you get dehydrated. And I mean, that's just never good for your health. And then if you're flying, and the air just sucks a lot of the moisture out of the body. So hydration is key. And I would even start that hydration 24 hours before you know that you're going to be traveling. Really ramp up your water intake and make sure you have water. Not that you're stopping at a gas station or a airport place and you're picking whatever you have, whether it's the sodas or the fruit juices. Be prepared, bring a little cooler with you if you're in the car, or, pick water at the airport when you get through security. Is making sure that you have that hydration with you, I think, is going to be really, really big. When you're traveling, one of the things that really get disrupted, I think, is your sleep. So I think that, planning your travel and making sure whether you don't sleep well if you don't have your pillow or your bed, or you're traveling at, weird hours, really trying to make sure that you're not getting too off your sleep cycle, because that really could, lower your immune system and create chronic stress in the body. And, those things really can have an impact and make you feel kind of crummy. And so when you get to your destination, you don't feel very good. So I think that planning your travel is going to be really, really important for part of that is the sleep portion.
Yeah, manage the sleep cycle becomes really important. We know that disrupted sleep is a massive stressor to the immune system and to cells. And one day maybe not a big deal, but if you already didn't have great sleep and now you're spending time traveling and disrupted sleep and your sleep cycles are off, it can definitely be one of those things that can trigger a flare of like an autoimmune condition, or it could aggravate your thyroid condition. Definitely. Hydration, I think, is key. And I think the other thing you want to add to that is if chances of dehydration are greater. So definitely hydrate. You might even want to think about adding some minerals or salts to the liquid you're drinking, because the more you pee and the more you sweat, you're also losing minerals as well. There's stress with travel. Stress is going to deplete magnesium. So most people that I see are magnesium deficient. So boost your magnesium. But I think maybe the best thing to do is get a good electrolyte powder that you can utilize. You don't need to have it in every glass of water, but definitely it's one of those things that you could add to along with the water to help with just maintaining not only your hydration but your electrolyte balance. I think you're right. When you're traveling, you typically wind up in somebody else's home, on a hotel, somebody else's pillows. And one of the biggest things that creates problems and challenges to cell health is toxicity. And, unfortunately, the mattresses we sleep on, the pillows we stuff our face in, the sheets, those things can all have some level of toxicity to them. And I know for me, I can't control every mattress I sleep on, but I can control what I stick my face in. And so we travel with our pillows all the time. I think that's just one way to kind of help support yourself, but definitely consider the fact that, you're not going to be able to have total control of your sleep environment, but something like as simple as a healthy, clean pillow that you bring from home can be one of those things that can be helpful. Definitely, consider the fact that travel, especially if you're traveling with family, especially with small kids, even big kids, because I got them. Sometimes the most stressful moments are the hours right before you have to go somewhere and leading up to everybody getting in the car. And if you can easily create so much emotional stress that creates a flare of a condition. So I think we need to be really important it's really important to be aware of where your mindset is, and that, traveling, having people over, shopping, cooking, these things are all things that can, if I let them, create emotional stress. And if you start reinforcing the fact that, this is stressing me out, it will stress you out, right? So I think one of those things is that you definitely consider that you have some way to put yourself in check so that you aren't blowing up, so that you aren't allowing these little things like nobody wants to get in the picture when I want to get in the picture. Nobody's ready. They're not showered. They're not helping. Those are all things that could drive more stress, cause a flare of a health condition. So find some tool or something to keep you in check. I've talked about things before. Definitely you discussed in the beginning, making sure you take time for yourself, exercise, meditation, whether you do yoga, whatever your thing is to help dump some of the stress. Thanksgiving morning, I know we're going to overeat all day at my sister's, and we did, but we still got up, we still exercise, kind of do those things to kind of balance those things out. If you're going to be around the people and a lot of people stress you out, make sure you spend some time, calm meditation. So prepare for what lays ahead. And then the other thing is have some things to help, remind you that, hey, this is a time to be joyous, not to be stressing and yelling at my family. And maybe have, wear a rubber band on your wrist to remember, and if you start getting mad, you snap yourself out of it. It sounds crazy, but I used to have a little foam clown nose that I used to keep in my pocket, because it's hard to, when you think about a clown and having a clown nose on, it's hard to be upset. but have some type of tool or anchor to bring you out of that emotional upset because of all the stuff that's going on, so it doesn't make you less healthy and it doesn't ruin your holiday weekend. Anything you want to add to that?
As far as travel, there's a couple other things I'll point out. If you're flying on an airplane, one thing that I always do when I'm on an airplane is I make sure that the vent above is not blowing on me. One, that's recycled air, so you're getting everybody else's air blowing on you, as well as there's probably some like plane fumes in there that could be coming. So I always make sure that that's not blowing and blowing directly in my face. Are you still breathing in the air that everybody else is blowing out of those vents? Absolutely. But at least it's not like directly blowing you in your face. One thing that I see often is people taking hand sanitizers all the time. They're reapplying every like 5 to 10 minutes. You know, your skin has a microbiome, and by putting, antibacterial, the gels and stuff on your hands, you may be disrupting your own microbiome. So I get that you don't want other people's germs, but you also have to be very cautious that using that on a very frequent basis may actually be causing more issues. So just be very cautious of that as well.
Yeah, and I think now that you've said that, I think we could talk about a couple things. What can you do if you're traveling to kind of boost your immunity? And we're not trying to fix everything with a supplement, but definitely things like vitamin C, whether it's liposomal vitamin C or just regular supplemental vitamin C, can be something that can boost the immune system. Stress is going to deplete it. You only get a day's worth. You're better off eating healthy food. But if you needed to supplement, that would be something that could be so beneficial. Magnesium is going to be one of those things that's going to be easily depleted. B vitamins are going to be easily depleted. And so you could support with a good quality multivitamin, or just boost those things at least temporarily during the times when you're most stressed. And travel would be one of those, in my opinion. And then you could think about things like, glutathione as a support product, especially if you're going to be traveling to help with detoxification. And then one of my favorites is, pound down your broccoli sprouts if you have a local organic source of them, or you're growing them in your kitchen, or you can use a sulforaphane-based product that supports your natural anti-inflammatory, antioxidant system, something to boost that system a bit. So those things can be helpful. Toxicity is huge, and it can be a major factor. So just kind of do what you can to mitigate it as much as possible. And the other thing I would say about travel, and I don't know where you are about this, and people are actually buying gifts too with those things. I think one of the things we want to be careful of is we want to kind of minimize the amount of manage your telephone time. Manage, I use them like the sound blocking headphones, but I see everybody wearing the earbuds now and things like that. And you're going to be on the phone, you're going to be traveling, doing those things. So my recommendation is, if you're going to be on those things a lot, there is some research that shows that people who use their cell phone, have it near their head, use those earbuds and Bluetooth devices, that can create more damage to the thyroid gland and overall health. So I would say, if you're going to be on the phone, definitely use on your phone, on your car, use the car. But if you're talking on the phone, use the speaker if you can. If you need a private conversation, plug in your headphones and put those on versus doing the earbuds all the time. I'm really concerned about what that long-term damage is going to be. But there is some studies that's showing, hey, just having that cell phone right next to your head can have an impact on the thyroid gland. So that'd be one of those things that I would add to that.
Yeah, no, and it goes beyond just even the cell phone. Think about when you're traveling, you not only have your earbuds in, you have your cell phone. Then a lot of times we have the watches that are the Wi-Fi watches, and you've got all these things that are very close to the proximity of your thyroid or even your brain. And so then there are some really cool things that you can do to help mitigate some of the electromagnetic fields, some EMFs. Hedron is one company. They produce lots of different things. I think they even they have earbuds or headphones now that are very low EMFs. So there's a lot of things out there that you can choose that are less less harmful. You're never going to escape EMFs. I mean, they're everywhere, but when you're on a plane, you're actually getting more EMFs, just because of the proximity of where you're at. So, you have to consider that, you want to take all those things into account. And if you're looking for somebody a really good gift, some of those things that, block EMFs are really, you can find tons of different things, whether they're necklaces or bracelets or things that go on your cell phone or things that plug into the wall that help to reduce overall EMFs in the environment.
Okay. Lastly, what would you say? What would you give as maybe final parting recommendations?
I think that it's, you need to enjoy the holidays, but don't let that be a free-for-all. Don't completely jump off the wagon and throw everything out the window just because, say I'm gonna do whatever I want for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But however long you're wanting to enjoy the holidays, you can still enjoy the holidays. I think that you have to pick and choose your battles essentially. But I wouldn't throw everything out the window because you think you're going to pick it back up after the first of the year, and most people don't. That's the hardest thing, is that once you start going down that slippery slope, a lot of times there's no return. You then get addicted to the sugar, and then you continue eating the sugary things into January, and it kind of snowballs. So slip a little bit, but make sure you're still on that rope so that you can come back up, come after the holidays. There shouldn't be an excuse after that. When the holidays are done, you want to get right back on, and you want to get back on track with what you're doing, but not stress too much that you got off that you can't get back on. And be grateful that enjoy the holidays. I think that not stressing about it, but knowing that you can move forward and get through the holidays and enjoy them and be grateful, but then get right back on track.
Yeah, I would say that when people consider, well, the holiday's coming up, so I'm going to do a bunch of bad things, or I'm going to eat a lot, I'm going to drink a lot, I'm going to eat whatever I want. Listen, every month there's a holiday, right? And so what I find is that as people start moving away from the standard American diet, they start really trying to commit to working on their health and their well-being, that really what happens is you wind up, the holidays aren't any different really than any other day, right? Because you're making better food choices, and those food choices typically become the standard of what you eat on a regular basis. That's your habit. You start to do things in your lifestyle, whether it's meditation or exercise or proper breathing and getting proper rest. So it doesn't change during the holidays. This is, if you're new to trying to get yourself healthy, new to an anti-inflammatory diet, autoimmune protocol, and you're new to trying to get yourself healthy, you're newly gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever those things are, what you're going to realize is the first year is probably the hardest. And then every year after that, it's not a big deal, because it just becomes who you are. It becomes the new habit. So you don't go off the rails at the next holiday, because it's just not what you do. You've figured out how to eat well. You've figured out how to drink alcohol if you're going to drink it appropriately, and how to do it so you're not creating too much stress on the body. You're figuring out how to eat at other people's houses, and it's not stressful anymore. So you just change. And so there are these less off the rail experiences, because being a healthier you just becomes part of the experience. I think it's the hardest when you're new at it, but as you start to go, like I said about our family in the beginning, it was trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to eat? Because we got 3 people here that are gluten-free and everybody else wants to eat this. It really isn't hard. After a while, it becomes the actual norm. And all the other stuff, we kind of look at some of that stuff now that maybe we would have eaten and gone, yeah, we're not going to do that. It's not about gluten-free, dairy-free. It's just about health. And we want to be healthy, whether it's the holiday or anything else. And I think to tie in what you said, this is a time to be grateful. And I think one of the most important things we should be grateful for is our health and our family and our friends. And the only way to really be truly grateful and get long-time experience with them is to be optimally healthy, or work to be the healthiest we can be. And if we're constantly doing things that aren't going to be beneficial to long-term health, we're not being good to ourselves, and we're robbing our friends and our family of their time with the best version of us. So I think, if you want to give a gift for the holidays, the best gift that you can give somebody else is the healthiest possible version of you, because that's really what we want. At the end of the day, we want quality time with somebody. And it's a shame when we see somebody leave this earth too soon. We're robbed of that time with them. And that's a selfish thing many times for us, but that's what we want. We want the best version of you, the best version of your wife, your kids. And if we aren't trying to do the best things for ourselves on a regular basis, I think we're really not giving our friends and family the best gift we really could, which is the best version of us.
Yeah, I mean, I see it so frequently where people come in and they say, well, I can't even go to my Christmas parties, or I can't even enjoy this because I've got so much chronic pain, or I have no energy. You're robbing your family of time with you, as well as enjoying your family and your kids, whether that's vacations or parties. Having chronic health issues, it only robs you of the joy in life. So the best thing you can do is, be grateful, make the best decisions you can, but know that you're doing it for an ultimate cause so that you can have better quality of life, not only for you, but for your family as well.
Absolutely. All right. So we will wrap this one up. This will probably be maybe we'll get one more in before the holiday, one more posted before the holiday, but we'll get this one posted just before the holiday. So if you're listening to this, it's probably the Tuesday before Christmas. But we wish everybody a healthy and happy holiday. We thank everybody who's joined the podcast and listens to the podcast and shares the podcast with us. We'll be back in the new year with season 4, and we'll keep it rolling with new guests and new interviews and digging more into thyroid physiology and giving you the answers that you're looking for. So for me, for Dr. Erica, everybody have a healthy and happy holiday season. All right.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yep. Take care.